Okay, guys. Hi, this is John from UFO on the Level. So, welcome.
How you
Actually, how do
doing?
you say your last name? It's a cool last name. It's like
It's Majerowski. It's just how it looks. It's Majerowski. Yeah.
Majerowski. Okay, I like that.
Yeah. Thanks.
Is that Polish or Russian or?
Yeah. Yeah. It's Polish. Well, they tell me it's Polish. I don't know if they want me to believe it's Russian or not, but that was my family said that they finally moved out of Poland because Russia kept taking over the part where we lived. So it was always being like, hey, we're Poland one day and now we're Russia and now we're Poland one day and we're now Russia. And finally they said, fuck it, we're out. So they came to America. So I'm sure it was Russian at some point we were in there, but yeah, it's interesting. I tried to do genealogy and it's like, I can't find anything because everybody was just,
Everywhere. Yeah.
yeah, everywhere for
Yeah, I did
on the
that
Polish side.
23andMe thing, and it was it's also kind of, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm nervous about the 20. I haven't done that yet because I was like, I don't know if I want them to
I
have my
wouldn't do that
DNA,
right
but
now.
whatever.
Like all things all over, like everything I know, like I'd be like, no, I'm not giving people my DNA. But I did it like 10 years ago. Like it was a pretty new company. I was living in New York and I went to like a
Froze
TED
up on
Talk
me
thing.
there.
Oh, I did. I froze on you. Yeah, that's
Oh,
crazy.
yep.
Um,
Yeah. All I heard was TED Talk thing when you were in New York.
yeah, so I was at a TED Talk event, and there was somebody who was one of the founders of the company giving a actual lecture afterwards, and I was like, yeah, I'll do it. That sounds amazing.
Oh.
But I was like 28 or something at the time, and I was like, you want my spit? Here you go. Like I think I paid like $30 or something to get it done. And then yeah, so now I'm kind of going like, man, I wish I would not have done that, but whatever. I did it.
Yeah. No, I mean, whatever they have, all of it doesn't matter. They're listening to us right now, so it
Yeah.
doesn't.
That's the other thing. It's
Yeah.
like I had a friend today text me saying, how is there a way to get it to where the iPhone doesn't track you? And then I was just like, yeah,
No.
don't have an iPhone, maybe. That's how you
There's
can
not
get
a thing where the iPhone doesn't track you. It just tracks you.
I'm like, yeah, there's settings that you can be like, oh, don't record this or don't, but yeah, good luck. Yeah. So, yeah, anyway, but yeah. Okay, so you're kind of fairly new to the YouTube game, right? Like you've been doing
Yeah.
this less than a year, but I love
Right.
your subject matter. I think I've
Thank
watched
you.
most of your videos. I think it's you have really honest, great conversations with people. So what like provoked this for you? Like why did you go, okay, I want to get into, I mean, for me, how I found you is on UFO Twitter, and I watched the YouTube video that you did with Patricia Advent, the first one.
Oh
And
yeah,
and
yeah.
I was, yeah, and I loved her, and I loved you guys. Your conversation was
Oh, thank
great.
you.
So I reached out to actually both of you. So yeah, I don't know. So tell me, how did you get on this UFO journey?
Well, I've been on the UFO journey my whole life actually, but like specifically how I got into the YouTube thing and then I got into the, UFO Twitter was, I think it was George Knapp, I think at one point was talking on Coast to Coast one night or something. And it was like, UFO Twitter is this whole thing. And he was talking about, how there's, researchers out there mixed with regular people, mixed with government agents, mixed with just everybody, people who say they're aliens and just all kinds of stuff, right? So I was like, I got to get into this. I was on Twitter before, but I really didn't engage anything. I was just kind of there because I do information security, so there's a lot of stuff that comes up, real frequent things that are happening, in the infosec world, like, hey, watch out, this ransomware is on the loose, kind of watch out. So I kind of kept up with that, but I never really dove into it for Twitter. So when I got into it, I was like, wow, this is rad, and I was just checking out, just basically just watching, I wasn't really engaging a lot. And then I started adding a little bit here and there, just my opinions or what I thought or things like that. And there's a guy that reached out to me by the name of James Ian Doling. And he's got an awesome platform called Engaging the Phenomenon. I don't know if you've seen him at all, but he's an awesome dude. And he just was like, hey man, he's like, you should do a YouTube channel. I'm like, why? I'm like, just some dude, like, I'm out here talking. He's like, no, I think you really got a different perspective than a lot of people, being a Freemason and some of the stuff that's going on. He's like, there's a big esoteric part that people have really been talked about and they really haven't, delved into. So I was like, well, I don't know, man. He's like, well, listen, dude, just do this thing where he does Ask Twitter, where basically he's just like, hey, Ask Twitter. And, he's like, just submit me a video, like 1 minute, 2 minutes, whatever, about this topic. And I was like, I don't know, man. So I had my iPhone set up on the corner or something. And it was like if we look back now, it's like the crappiest video I ever did. And it was just like, me chatting it up. And like, but James was like holding my hand literally the whole way. Like, do this, man. You should do. Oh, so I did it. It was like, pandemic was going on. I really didn't have a lot else going on. I was at working from home every day. I'm still working from home. And I'm like, well, I'm here. This is kind of what I've been into my whole life. And honest to God, and I say this in almost every video that I've been, if you've watched a couple of them, but before I was really afraid that the black van would show up and just haul me out, like legit. I mean, growing up, like I said, I really grew up with this stuff. My dad, had a couple big sightings when I was, when he was young, and when actually, I wasn't around at the time, so it was the '70s, in '60s. And he was into it forever then, and then that's how I got into it, because he was just like, this is real. So we were always scooping up videos and doing a bunch of stuff, and he was just magazines and all the stuff he can get his hands on. So I just grew up thinking it was real. But back then, legit, I mean, if you talk too much, or you saw something somebody didn't want you to see, like, people would show up and take your stuff and scare you and tell you to be quiet. And I was like, man, I don't need that in my life. But I was like, fuck it. At this point, there's so many people. I mean, UFO Twitter's out there. I mean, and like Bob Lazar came out and he stayed in front of everybody because he's like, I don't want to die. So if I just keep my face out there and I just keep doing it, and I'm just a nobody in it anyway. So I was like, all right, cool. So I just started to talk about it, and I met a lot of cool people, like Patricia Vaughn, amazing woman. I got to meet you, very cool too. I mean, so yeah, it's been really, really rad. So what about you? How did you get into this whole game?
I mean, kind of similar. It is interesting, that whole concept of like people who have seen UFOs sometimes have family members who have seen UFOs. Now,
Yeah.
my whole family, um, so my mom has seen UFOs, and actually all four of my grandparents have. But
Wow.
I knew about it when I was little, and I've had UFO experiences, and I've actually had crazy, like I've had ghosts, I've had
That's how it started for me. It started for me as ghosts when I was a kid.
yeah, I had some ghost experiences when I was a kid, and again, shut it off in my
Mm-hmm.
puberty, from puberty to like in my 20s. I was like, nah. And then all the stuff started coming back in my 30s. But yeah, so basically I was raised
That's
outside
exactly
of,
what happened to me too. I shut it off. I shut it off because I was like, I can't handle this shit. And a lady told me you can do it, and I was like, okay. And she was like a ghost, like a lady who wrote, an author who wrote a lot of books, and she's like, look, if you don't want to see it anymore, just turn it off. I'm like, really? She's like, yeah, just. And I'm like, okay.
I think for me, I had to really grapple the fear element. I had
Mm.
like, because I was really uh like I had grandparents I lost three grandparents in 1 year when I was 30 years old. That was
Oh
2012.
wow.
And
I'm
I was
sorry.
like, yeah, it sucked. It was weird though. It happened within like in 4 weeks, I lost all three of my grandparents.
Wow.
So it's just like when it
Wow.
rains, it pours, right? And I had both my grandmothers like came back to me within 6 months of that, and like were talking to me and like in dreams, say, and like physically seeing them. And then that's like really part of, actually 2012 was just a crazy year for me. I saw a UFO. My mom saw a UFO.
Like
um
actual craft, like a
yeah,
physical
like for
craft.
me it was I I was outside at like 1 a.m. watering plants. I was living in New York, but I was back in, I'm from or well, my mom lives in Dallas, Texas. And so like I was here in Dallas. That's where I live now.
Mhm.
And I was I don't know, I was watering plants at 1 a.m. I know that's crazy, but anyway, I had a friend over. My mom was out of town, and she had like called me, "Did you water my plants?" And I was like, "Ah, go water
Fuck.
your plants."
All
So I'm
right.
like outside, I'm like watering her plants, and I look up, and it's almost like there was a helicopter, but it would disappear and appear here, like, and then disappear and appear here. It was like traveling real fast, like where it couldn't have traveled, and it was going all over like the peripheral vision of what I could see in the sky. And I didn't have my iPhone on me, so I didn't want to not look at it, because it would be gone by the time
Hmm.
it came
Hmm.
back. So I screamed to my friend. I was like, get my phone. And so she takes her precious time. She gets out there. I've got the wet water hose. I'm like, look at this. Look at this like UFO. And she's like, yeah, yeah,
Wow,
like
really?
it's probably like a helicopter here. And I'm trying, and then I'm like, okay, I'm trying to film it. Nothing comes out, like it's, whatever.
Yeah.
But uh and what was amazed me more than the UFO itself was the fact that she didn't give a shit.
It's like 90% of the population is that, though. They just don't give a shit.
And
Patricia says that too a lot. She says it too. She's like, well, what the fuck is it going to do for me? That's literally a quote from Patricia Vaughn. It's like, that's beautiful. But what the fuck are you going to do for me? You know, that's a Patricia Vaughn quote. Like, it's beautiful, but you going to fucking come down here and help me? Then,
yeah. So
right?
that's yeah. So then but like I've been down this rabbit hole like in all different realms, and
I've seen your videos are all over the place. You just got, you're fucking all, I mean, just all over. It's
yeah,
great.
I
You don't
got
hold back.
I'm really into ancient archaeology.
You're
I'm
right.
really into psychic people and people who are like I don't want to be a channel myself, but I want to talk to these people and be like, what's your experience? Like, I'm very open-minded about everything. Like, I don't
Yeah.
think anybody kind of knows one way or the other what's really going on, so I want to hear everybody's perspective and try to kind of see what I can piece together on the subject matter, because like
Yeah.
I'm not, I mean, I've gone as far down the rabbit hole of this is a simulation
Mm-hmm.
to like there's inner earth beings, they're not actually outer space, like that.
Ultra terrestrials, right?
Ultra
Yeah.
terrestrials, interdimensionals, time
Mm-hmm.
travelers, like what, I mean, I don't know. So
It's all of it, man. That's the fun part when you start getting into it. For me, anyways, like we said, was kids were as ghosts, and it's like, oh, somebody died and they're haunting the house, and it's like, well, somebody was talking to me, and the guy doesn't want me to say his name or anything, and he's an all right guy. He's pretty cool, but like, his deal is like he started showing me data where like, all right, here's high paranormal, more ghost activity, and then look at the UFO data and you put it right on top of it, and it's like verbatim, like you see any type of line chart and it's like parallel with it the whole entire way. And it's been like that for years, at least since the 80s or whenever they were keeping these records, and I'm like, it does make a lot of sense. And then you see the Skinwalker Ranch stuff where it's like the whole gamut, right? It's like weird trickster stuff, ghost, that paranormal weird things, poltergeisty things, craft in the sky, portals, like there's everything, right? So I think all of it is you know I think it's so weird that it's segmented, and Patricia and I've talked to this in our video too. It's like there's segments within segments, like she was
oh
saying.
yeah,
It's like, it's like, oh, this kind of big person, but not this kind, and you're this kind of UFO person, but not this kind. It's like, man,
yeah,
it's all the same thing until we really start
it is
hanging out and getting
weird
together, and
because
like it's not gonna happen.
yeah, and you do have people who will be like, oh, I 100% believe in angels and ghosts, but aliens, you're crazy. Or, or vice versa. Like I believe
Yeah,
in aliens and UFO craft and Bigfoot, but angels and like other things, like you're crazy. I mean, so
right.
there's and I'm just kind of going like maybe some of these things are the same stuff that we're labeling different or related somehow that we don't really even know. You
Yeah,
know.
I agree with that. And I think Tim McMillan or somebody I think said this. I think Tim McMillan said this in one of his videos. I was before the debrief, but maybe it wasn't. But he was like, he had talked to somebody who said, the Roswell crash, the craft or whatever they had in storage or whatever. He said you could go and look at it and it would visually be to you whatever it you needed it to be. So if you walked in the room and you saw like a teddy bear on the floor, like that's whatever.
Hmm.
But like somebody else would see a big black cube with light shooting out of it, or somebody else would see a disc, and it's like it would present itself to you whatever you needed it to be for you to make sense, which is
See, that's crazy to me because then like what are we dealing with? Are we dealing with like yeah. I mean that kind of reminds me of like that Jerry Willis guy who went through a portal in Lake Titicaca area. It's like not what is the name of that place? Like it's called the Gate of the Sun or something. But anyway, I think Linda Moulton Howe had him on one time talking about this.
Mhm.
And so he goes through this portal and he's like in a white room with no like edges to anything. It's just like white like a paper as far as you can see.
Mhm.
And there's like this voice explaining to basically it's kind of like a simulation sort of theory type thing. But then I actually have personal friends who went to that same portal with like some sort of shamanic thing, and they had a completely different experience that was like they saw like some sort of weird sun god thing that like had like a whole headdress and it looked like it was melting with like liquid gold and stuff, and it told them it was raw.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
but they both were in the same exact spot, like supposedly going through the same portal, but had completely different experiences. So
That's,
yeah,
I mean, so to me, that's how I always thought it is. Like, you know, when you saw the helicopter thing, was it a helicopter or was it like, oh, this chick will think we're a helicopter if we present ourselves as a helicopter? You know what I mean? Like, is this what it needs to be for us to make sense? You know, when
well, that's why I think that black helicopter, the black helicopter that shows up with no markings, like I think that's a UFO.
it's yeah, because it's just hiding, you know,
Yeah.
hiding in plain sight. But then again, what the hell do I know?
Okay,
Y-
so the Freemason thing. Oh wait, what
yeah.
were you gonna say before that? You were on a train of thought.
Well, what I was thinking is like, you know, maybe there's so much disinformation and I see it more often than not. And, yeah, you know, just knowing a little bit about how the government works and, you know, the programs and things like that. I mean,
Like there's the voice
managing
of God, there's like
Blue Beam and there's, you know, I mean, I've talked to guys that said that they were in Iraq, actually Afghanistan. No, was it Iraq? I think it was the first or second, it was this first or second Iraq war. I'm sorry. I got some friends that were in both, but one of them said that they had blue beam. It wasn't called blue beam, whatever it was, but it was giant scorpions, right? And there was like a front of guys they were trying to go up against, but they projected like giant scorpions coming at them, and these dudes dropped all their guns and just ran, and that was it. And it was like we didn't have to fire a shot. That's just the kind of how that shit works, you know. Like other ones would have like Allah show up to them in the middle of the night in their camp and be like, "You're gonna have to drop all your guns and you're done." And everybody comes out the next day and they're like, "Okay, we're done." You know, like so. I got to believe that the government has I know they have the ability, but I got to believe they've used it, you know, in
yeah.
theaters like that. So what could it be? You know, I mean, that could be used everywhere all the time for any of us, really. But I mean, is it that? Is it trying to manage the message? Is it trying to push us till we think it's aliens when it's not? You know, I mean, I don't know. Sorry, I just went on a tangent.
Yeah, no, I mean, I actually think that there's something to that. I mean, I had in 2008, I was in India, and I was at this place called it was called the Sadhana Forest, but it was within Oroville, and it's this experimental city where like money's not allowed, religion's not allowed, cars aren't allowed. Like it's like 50,000
Really?
people from all over the world. It was this guy named Bindu, who was kind of like the J.K. Rowlings of like the 1900s, and he died without any heirs. So they used his money to physically build the utopia that he used to write about. It's
Holy
a
shit! I've
crazy
never heard
place.
of this.
Yeah, it's called Oroville, like your aura, like
Mm-hmm.
aura. It's cool. It's a little cultish. It's a little weird, but
Yeah.
it's worth checking out. Anyway, so I'm there, and I had these blue light balls come in from the window, like as if the window wasn't there.
Mm.
And they were like basketballs, and then they elongated to like watermelon size. Two were on this side of me, two were on this side of me. And also I was dead asleep. It was like 3 or 4 a.m. in the morning, and it felt like, how you're diving too far underneath the water and you need to like blow your nose, and
Yeah.
there's that
Yeah.
pressure, like that physical pressure woke me up. And then there was
Whoa.
my friend was in the bed. We had two twin beds, and she was in the other twin bed, and I was like, Amy, Amy. And I was trying to wake her up because like these light balls are right by me, and then they kind of like paralyzed me to where I couldn't speak.
Mm.
And so I'm like sitting up on my bed, like looking at them, and then they start talking to me telepathically. And they don't talk to me in English. They just gave me like movies, like they would
Mm-hmm.
just project a whole bunch of information, so like the order of things was weird. Anyway, I at the time I had just learned about the voice of God and stuff before that happened. So even then I had a hard time being like, I don't know if this is like, maybe I'm a targeted individual, like maybe like I'm like, I don't know, like I don't know what to believe or not to believe, so even my own experiences I have to sometimes like take them with a grain of salt and be like, it is possible that this stuff, even though I do believe within my own experience it feels like it's happening, it could
Yeah.
be manipulated to me.
Oh yeah. And you know, I always think that too, but I think there's a vast majority of people that have these experiences that just don't say anything. I mean, I
Oh
think you and I have the balls to say it, to be able to do it and get out there. There's like 98% of the people that won't say it to anybody because of the stigma behind all of it. Like, I don't want to
Oh,
think people I'm
my
crazy.
sister is like, you have cognitive dissonance and you are crazy.
Wow.
Like she's just like, yeah, like you're super. I mean, I have a ton of people in my life who are like, dude, you lost your mind. But
Need
at
to
the
get some
same
help.
time,
Yeah.
I'm just kind of like, well, then like you and I are going to go on different paths, man, because I want to talk about this stuff. I'm sick of being repressed about it all the time.
Yeah. 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 No, it's good. And it's good that, I mean, and I hate to say that. I mean, Patricia and I have talked about this too, but there's like a lack of women in this field completely. Like zero. There's zero, I mean, in scale wise, right? I mean, for every woman, there's 200 basement dweller dudes out
Yeah.
there that are just like,
For me,
it's
I feel
terrible.
like a large part of that is there seems to be like your story is only valid if you're a
No.
military personnel or a pilot. If the
Mm.
pilots, and I'm a flight attendant,
Oh,
so if the or that was my day job. But
mm,
anyway, like if a pilot sees it, then it's valid, or if a military guy talks about it, okay. Otherwise, you're not credible. And I think
yeah.
there's that stigma needs to,
That needs to go away.
yeah, it
That
does,
really
because
does.
that's only one perspective too. And for me, I also kind of have the whole feeling of, well, I don't know. For me, I'm getting to a point where I'm more interested in like these crazy experiences, like the one I like the blue balls, or like
Hmm. Hmm.
like the bleed
Blue
slow.
balls is not a good experience. I'm just, as a man, I'm just, I just had to
That
put that out there.
blue.
I just you set that one up on the T-ball for me, and I just,
That's pretty funny.
sorry.
But okay, so
Yeah, no,
like
no, totally, no, totally. Because I had
versus,
like the orange balls. All right, so what does that
okay,
mean? Like, is your
yeah,
blue balls different than my orange balls? I don't know. I think the orange balls are the gateway drug to UFOs. I think people see orange
so
balls and
many
then all of a
people
sudden,
see the orange orbs.
yeah, what
That's
is
like,
that?
what is that? Yeah.
I don't
And
know.
I don't know how many times I've heard about the orange orbs, but like I have so many friends who've talked about that and seen that. And
Why?
um
I don't know.
I've seen the Marfa lights,
Mm,
which
Texas, yeah,
yeah, in Texas.
big,
Like I saw those actually recently. There definitely was some orange orbs, but I don't think I've seen the kind of orange orbs that you guys are talking about. Blue ones, but not orange ones. But anyway, the thing
yeah,
is like
yeah,
I
yeah,
think that you
yeah.
have,
But
go ahead.
no, no, no. Go ahead, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I don't know. I just kind of feel like I don't know. People are at this point. I'm not convinced, or I don't have to convince you whether or not UFOs are real or not. At
Right.
this point, it's a choice whether or not you want to get into this, because there's enough evidence, like for,
Yes.
yeah. It's so if I'm still having to like tell you about all the different evidence, then you're not really that interested.
Mm-mm. No, I mean, like, it's the choice. We go full circle back to what we were talking about earlier, where you can just turn it off. And I think a majority of people just turn it off because they're afraid. The stigma. There's a religion thing behind it. There's their family. There's all these other things. People are just like, you know what? Maybe I am kind of interested. Maybe I see something I can't explain. If there wasn't two other people with me or somebody else with me, I'm not going to say anything because I don't want to. I just don't even want to go there. I got bills to pay. I got a job. I got kids. I get. Like people are just like, I'm too busy with life. I don't think it. And honestly, we've said this before too. I was like, I don't think anybody's really interested or cares unless something has actually happened to them, unless they physically experience. But that's true for anything, though, right? Like,
Yeah.
oh, homelessness or hunger or anything. Like, if you haven't experienced those things, you're like, how do you
Right.
care about it in a
Right,
way
exactly.
that's meaningful? You know what I mean? So
Exactly.
it's
That's
hard for a lot of people, but
a good point.
it's interesting to for me it's like I tell my wife it's like this is my hobby, like some people watch Dancing with the Stars or whatever, like this is what I like to do, like I'm not saying I believe everything I read, I'm not saying I believe everything everybody says, but sometimes you can sniff out the truth from the crap, and you can meet cool people and make friends all over and that are kind of in the same thing, and maybe you can get to a point where you're like, hey, through all this research, we've kind of, put everything together and maybe we figured something out. And if not, at least we had a good time, whatever.
Well, I definitely have been good at discerning, like, okay, that's a missile. Do you see when it's spiraling like that? That's like a
Hmm.
missile test.
Hmm.
Like, or
Hmm.
I mean, and I can sort of get to where I can point out like what's going, or be like, I think that might actually be drones. Sorry.
Yeah,
But
right, right.
you know, okay, but back to the craft, I didn't finish this point,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
was, I feel like I'm less interested in, even though I have seen the military, like, triangle
Oh,
craft
yeah. Yeah, yeah.
or, like, kinda like the tic-tac-toe
Mhm, mhm.
UFO or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm less interested in these, I don't know what you
Physical
call it,
crafts, physical
physical,
craft.
medical,
Yeah.
or yeah,
Nuts
because
and
I
bolts, the
feel,
nuts and bolts,
yeah, the
yeah.
nuts and bolts of it, because I feel like that is way easier to be either reverse engineering or actual government, like, programming or stuff
Mhm,
versus these weird light anomalies or weird visitations or weird, like, cryptoids or whatever.
mhm.
I don't know, I like them all, but I'm just saying, I'm starting to get to a point where I'm kinda going like, "Oh, whatever,
Yeah,
tic-tac-toe, boring, super
yeah,
boring,
yeah,
onward."
TR3B, whatever, we've seen it. Yeah, yeah. No,
Right.
I get it, and it could be a manipulative thing by the government too to go, "Hey, look, there's aliens," when it's really that's what they're trying to spin you off of, to not pay attention to the things that are already here, like like the balls, the energy, the orbs, the ultra terrestrials, the things that are real. So spin you off into a thing thinking it's all little green men when it's really, consciousness. I think that's what this whole thing kind of gets into. And when I got into this game when I was a kid, obviously that didn't come to a part of it. But as I got older and experienced and talked to a lot of people and, just living life and things too, it's like, man, there's really something to do here with collective consciousness or individual consciousness, like as a whole, where, CE5 and all that thing comes into
Yep.
play, where like you even go into that and you go into remote viewing, where if that's possible, anything's possible, so to
Yeah.
me, I'm like, I think that's a major part of it, and that we as humans really don't understand the powers we possess and how to even do it or control it and what's going on, um, there's just some crazy things that you can do to like just simple experiments for yourself to figure out that's real. So
I recently did a remote viewing class, and I was like,
I've done one as
"Shit."
well, and I was like, holy shit.
Me too. I was like, it worked so well that I was like, "Shit.
Hmm, hmm.
If that works that well, then what's really going on here? Is this a simulation? What is this?" Um,
No, I'm totally with you, because like when I heard they were training Army grunts, like guys that just got out of boot camp, like, hey, we can give you this book. We're going to sit you in this class for 2 days or whatever, and we're going to train you how to do this. And I was like, man, I know a lot of Army grunts, and if these assholes can do this,
right.
then I can do it for sure, right? And then that's literally what it was. I think it's like the Ed Dames course. It made it so official. Like, here's a form you fill out, and here's this thing, and it's like, it's so like you do this whole thing. It's like an
Yep.
army thing. Like you do this, like,
Right. There's your
and it works.
AOC, AOL or whatever.
Yeah, yeah, right down here and all this stuff. And
Yeah.
yeah, so I was like, okay, maybe I'm just, maybe because I'm into this shit, I'm into it. So my stepdaughter is 10, and I'm like, right when COVID, happened, we were in lockdown, she didn't have school. I'm like, look, I went through this. This is kind of what it is. I didn't give her too much background. I'm like, just watch the video, and just follow. Here's the forms. I'm going to stay out of your face. Just do it, And I came back and I was like, holy shit, this kid was like right on. Like every single one of the,
Yeah.
pictures that popped up, I was like, she's way, way turned on. She's 10. She has no like preconceived, just gonna do it, and she did it so well, she got bored and was like, quit. She didn't even finish it because like, I can do this. Like, I don't care.
That's not cool. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not cool. I'm gonna go back to TikTok now. Fuck this, like, but it's just amazing, where kids and like the seeing while blindfolded thing for kids. Have you seen any of that
Yeah,
stuff?
I have a friend who does that in Mexico City. She's an extraocular vision coach.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
rad, huh?
Yeah, that, and when you see some videos of that stuff, like they can read like full on books with.
You hand a kid a book that's never seen before, and they're like, they have the sensors in there so they know they're not seeing, and they're just reading it, or like
Mhm.
catching stuff you're throwing at them, or colors, and riding a bike. And I'm like, holy shit, I can barely ride a bike I can see.
Uh, and I mean, that just makes me, there's so much untapped mental abilities that we have. I really do. Like one of my things is I used to, as a kid, used to think I could control the rain. And I could
Mm,
control the rain when I was a kid. And then puberty, it was like, it stopped and whatever. And as I got older, I've just recently started to try to like get that back. And I actually understand how to explain how to visualize it for people.
wow.
And I am kind of starting to go, okay, I used to, my mom would tell me, don't tell people that, Nikki, don't Don't tell people you can control the rain. They're gonna think you're crazy. And I'm like, no, but I
Yeah.
can. And she'd be like, yeah, okay, but don't vocalize that out
Right, right.
loud.
Yeah, don't say that.
Yeah, but I don't know. So I'm thinking like there's people who are like animal communicators. I don't know if you've
Hmm.
watched any documentaries about that. I mean, there's all
No.
kinds of stuff. But back to the consciousness thing, which is kind of super interesting.
I'm going to stop you just for 1 second because I've seen somebody control the rain, and this is the first I've actually heard somebody who knew, and I didn't believe it at first, but I had radar and I could see a group of cloud. I mean, it was a big ass thunderstorm, right? It was coming in. We were having a meeting and it was outside, and this guy controlled the rain. Didn't tell us he controlled the rain until after it was done. And then I was like, holy shit. So when you go back and look at the radar, there was this tiny hole where everything was raining around us, right? We were sitting there. We could watch it just raining all around us. And I'm like,
I can make it rain or I can make it not rain. I can
not rain
bring
is
it
what I saw.
in or I can make it
Wow.
quit. I can make it go heavy where I am or unheavy. And then when I was a kid, I haven't been able to redo this, but when I was a kid, I could trace out where I wanted lightning to go. But
Whoa.
I can't do that anymore. I haven't got that back. I'll just say it like that.
That's
But
right. You have to teach me how to do that, Nikki.
okay, so like I'll just give you a brief rundown about how I did it. Okay, you know how when there's like a cat or dog in the room, even though they can't
Yeah.
speak English, you understand there's a presence there.
Yep.
And there's like there's some you can just like look at it and you can feel that there's that presence.
Mm-hmm.
The sky in and of itself is alive and it has a presence to it. So you have to connect with that as if you were talking to any other entity, any other being, any other person, and just in your head, like I used to use English, but you also have to use pictures and feelings. So like for instance, if I really wanted it to rain, I would just sit down, breathe for a second, and then like I only works when I close my eyes, but I would close my eyes and I would basically act like I'm talking to the sky around me as if it was a person. And sometimes I'd play games. I'll be like, I bet you can't rain. Bet you can't rain tomorrow. Or, or I bet you can't stop the rain. And I can get a feel for whether it's wanting to play with me or not. So I get a feel for its mood in a way.
Wow. Yeah.
And so then you can kind of what you
Change your
kind of
path
you
of
can
what,
kind
yeah.
of say like if you like for instance if it's not in a playful mood, maybe you just need to express like, hey, we really need rain right now, and this is what I if I were the ground, this is what I would feel like if you were raining on me. If I were a leaf, this is what I would feel like if you were raining on me.
Ah.
And if I were an animal out in the rain, this is like the relief I would get from having that on me. And I even will envision it like getting on my skin and seeping in my skin and like expressing to it how grateful I would be if it was touching me. This is all done like by giving it a visual movie instead of saying, I don't know if it works. I mean, it works for me. It's like, I don't know. No one taught me how to do this or anything. It's just something I did as a kid, but it's worth trying for people. You just act like the sky and the clouds themselves are beings and talk to it in pictures in your head about like what you want to happen, and it'll happen.
Yeah, and that is crazy, and I don't mean crazy, but it's spot on for a thing where, I mean, I DJ'd for a long time in nightclubs and stuff like that, and so when it was like 2001, and I moved back home to hang out. It was just family was going through some stuff, and so I came out and help out on the farm, right? Came back home. So I started DJing and hanging out. But there's literally nobody where I grew up, right? Like the middle of cornfield, like Northwest Ohio, right? So we're hanging out, campfire one night, met a couple of buddies, and we're just sitting out and we hear this dirt bike in the distance. And I'm like, and maybe we were a little drunk or high or both. So I'm like, shit, it's the cops. And my buddy looks at me, yeah, asshole, the cops are on dirt bikes. And then we just started busting out laughing, right? And I was making a mix CD at the time, and I couldn't think of a name of it. So I was like, that's it. I'm going to name the CD Cops on Dirt Bikes, because that's fucking hilarious, because you don't think of that, right?
Yeah.
Like, no shit. I like, it was back in the day, right? So I like printed labels with a cop, just called Cops on Dirt Bikes, not a picture, just whatever. Gave it out to my friends, whatever. 2 weeks later, after I did that, I'm driving to work. Guy pulls out in front of me real quick on a dirt bike. Full uniform police officer. Like just full on cop. And I'm like,
Manifested that one.
Yeah, I'm like, fuck, that just happened, right? At that point, I'm like, anything can happen now. If you just think about it hard enough and you care about it and you put some emotion behind it, shit, anything can happen.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah.
I think I've told that story a couple times, but not on camera. But so that's funny. But that literally happened, man. And I'm like, well, you can do anything then. Same thing. It's make it happen. But people are just like pushed down, or not pushed down, but they're taught that to believe in some type of higher power or some type of authority figure that's going to save them or tell them what to do. But I think we really just got to get to the point where we as humans need to like elevate ourselves. We're like, I can do all this.
Yeah, like the personal sovereignty element. Yeah, I definitely feel like and that's kind of interesting to talk about, like who is doing that to us or not. Like I don't know how you feel about psychedelics or what you've done with that.
No, totally. Yeah, I think that's a gateway.
Yeah, I've had 2 ego deaths now, and I would say that they were the most valuable experiences of my life. Just because.
Me too.
Yeah, okay. So you've had some.
Yeah. And that gets you, grounds you back to where the oneness, I think, is what it did for me. It was like, exactly. Yeah, it's like, hey, everything's connected. This blade of grass, this guy over here that's being an idiot still, and and everybody you love, and the stars above you, everything is all the same. And it's like one vibrational
that monad concept that you talked about with, I had never read it like that. I just experienced that same thing where I basically was back with the energy source of whatever. And I didn't like to say God, because I felt like God is a personification, and I felt like heaven is a place. And I felt, like a lot of these words kind of like put it into a noun. Whereas it was different than that. From my experience, it felt like it was just like whatever the energy that ignites us all. It was that electricity in a way. And I was back in that, and I didn't know I was a human. I didn't know I was Nikki. I didn't know I was a girl. I didn't know anything, but I experienced the oneness again. And then that made me have so much more compassion when I came back, because I was like, oh shit, man, like you can hate the tyrants all you want, but they're an aspect of something that is got the same electricity in it that you do.
Right. And so is the ant that you just stepped on accident.
Yep. And the rocks.
And the spider that you fucking hate.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's all there. And it really doesn't, it's like near death experiences. And then I think that, psychedelic experiences kind of really good correlators to the same kind of thing in my mind. Because the experiencers of each one of those things have the same message in a way, if you think about it like that. Like somebody had a near-death experience, kind of go back to the oneness, everything comes into picture. Same thing from, ego death or psychedelic experiences, in a lot of, and I'm trying to say this without getting into trouble. So a lot of esoteric, teachings or esoteric, ceremonies, degrees, things like that. There's a aspect, if you go back to the mystery schools, the Egyptian mystery schools, or if you research any of those, or any of the, secret studies where, Pythagoras, and if you go back even farther and any of those, you want to say cults, but whatever they were, ancient colleges, secret mystery schools, right? I think that's where I was going, mystery schools. They, it was long, hard, put where you physically, mentally, emotionally went through this whole entire gamut to get to a spot where it broke you down. Psychedelics were even used in a lot of those as well, to broke you down to like your bare minimum of your existence as a human, to realize, hey, there's a lot more than this than you're experiencing in your day-to-day life, or what you perceive to be your day-to-day life, or how you perceive everything to work, and then build you back up. And then, here's a whole bunch of knowledge that you need to know too, at the same time. So it's like, here's a void and we're going to fill it, but you're doing it anyway because you're a part of it. I'm paraphrasing a lot because I can't say a lot about it, but I'm just trying to give you a 1,000-foot view of kind of what that is. But it teaches you to experience life in a different way than you already have your entire life,
Yeah, I'm reading the Emerald Tablets right now, and I'm really interested in I've started just looking into more like the Hermetica, and I just feel like we have this such an arrogant view that we're the smartest we've ever been right now. You know,
Yeah,
and
no, we're not.
that's not, especially when you get into, there was definitely an advanced culture on this planet that was wiped out either from
Every
their own
12,000
ways.
years, every
Yeah,
12,000 years, actually, that happens.
yeah. Well, and you know, like the Young Dryas was the last big one that took it out. And that's one of my big obsessions. Like the first time I went to Sacsayhuaman in Peru, I touched my hands on some of the stones and I was like, what the hell? Like we did not build this. Like, I'm sorry, but Inca people did not build like something like what is like why didn't I learn about this in school? What is this place again? Like where are we? What's going on? And then that just like kind of flipped my world where I was just like, okay, I knew just looking at the stones in person, no one had to say anything to me because I had never researched it before. I went there on a whim, like I was on a yoga
Wow.
trip. And then I was going like, okay, guys, this is not okay. This is not okay. Like this is something that I should have known about my whole life. Like let's talk about this butter melting stones that are bigger than cars put together. And then anyway, so then that like put me down the whole rabbit hole of that, which is actually, that's one of my favorite subjects. I love that stuff. But
No,
like,
that's I got into this too, and like I don't know if you are suspiciousobservers.com if you're
yeah, yeah,
yeah. So I mean that's a huge, you know, Dr. Ben Davidson's a genius. You know, he's put together some stuff that, you know, I don't think anybody has on the planet. I mean, I've been following him for about 15 years now, just, you know, just on and off. And, you know, for the past, I don't know, 5, I've been really involved. And when the CIA started releasing documents they've been hiding, and, you know, Ben put it all together with the research they've done from the Apollo missions where they found rocks that, you know, correlate to all the stuff that's been happening on the planet. And then they,
um,
you know, it's just like, hey, there's going to be a micronova soon, and the Earth's going to go like this for a little bit, and then it's going to go back, and about 25% of the planet's going to live. And that's what happens about every
well,
12,000
that's
years or
actually
so.
what those blue balls told me, that the
Really?
in 2018 they told me that we were going to have a pole reversal and
Mm.
that they could hold it back for up to, they were okay, so they were saying that they could hold it back for up to 25 years, but that they needed certain people to raise their vibration enough to that so that they could see them. It wasn't personal, it was that they can't, if you're at a low enough vibration or whatever that
You
means
can't
to
pick it
them,
up, right? Yeah.
yeah, they can't see you to help you. So
Wow.
it was about that basically. And I was like, all right, sounds a little, and then afterwards I was like, oh, this sounds a little Corey Good stuff. But that was actually something that happened to me, like that those things that came and talked to me. But then I started looking into pole reversals and all that. Like that wasn't on my radar before that. And yeah,
Right, right. It's not, that's on nobody's radar, by the way. Nobody gives a shit about that. I tell people, they're like, oh yeah.
that's huge. I mean, I've also recently talked to this like that was his name, Diehold Foundation. He's also big into the like the Adam and Eve thing document from the
Yeah.
CIA.
Yeah. Where
Um,
they released, that was the hidden one. And yeah. And the
yeah,
CIA actually went out. I can't remember the guy's name. I think it was Hapgood, who was a CIA agent. And he went out and that basically every academic modern science, you know, pinnacle of geology and everything else, or whatever, astronomy, astrology, whatever, is built on Hapgood's theory. And Einstein wrote the preview to Hapgood's books. Everybody thinks that Hapgood, you know, is basically the same thing, but Hapgood was basically just trying to steer everybody away from the truth. And that was going on for the past 50 years or 60 years, whatever. And it's like, man, those fuckers. But maybe they
yeah.
are building bunkers underground to
I was gonna
protect
say
us
like,
all.
but like, I mean, like I mean, I
Or
know
not
like
us. I mean, we're not going to be in
no, but
there.
the military is totally
Yeah.
building stuff underground.
Yeah.
Then sometimes I'm like, do I actually need to become like a crazy prepper and like build an underground thing? But
I don't
you
know.
wouldn't last. And like the way it looks like from the geological record, like I used to be a geology major way back when, and
Yeah.
the Milankovitch cycles are very much like they go okay, so basically they look in the Pacific Ocean where the iron filings of the lava like melts instantly when it hits the water. Okay.
Yeah.
So whenever it freezes, the poles of the iron filings are facing towards the magnetic north.
Hmm.
Okay, so when they look through the geologic record, it's like a castle top where it's like they're facing south they're facing north, they're facing south, they're facing north. It's not like a sine wave, like where it gradually happens. Like whatever
It's like
happens, it's like
happening,
boom,
not happening.
boom, boom, boom. So yeah, and I definitely think when you look around, like if you look at Terra Preta, you look at you know, all like the engineered soil that's found all over the world, that's like we can't recreate today, and it's way more nutritious, and you don't have to put fertilizer and all that stuff. There was totally advanced civilizations that were just boom wiped out in a second, and I don't know. So
We're not gonna
that's
make it. But
really
Ben says if we just got to float. And I'm like, I don't to float to where? To be able to go back to like using a bow and arrow and making like shit. I don't know if I want to hang out.
I know, right? That is another thing. Like when people talk about zombie apocalypses, I'm like, I don't want to live with a bunch of zombie. I don't
No.
know. I'm not gonna like get my sword out and go. I don't know.
But that's interesting that the blue things told you that this was coming. They could hold it off. One of my things was like along that line too. Was thinking like they're here to help. And and this is just my shitty theory that I've come up with. One of many, by the way, is that maybe this disclosure thing is partially being pushed by the government faster now, is because their holding off has stopped, or they know it's coming and it's going to happen in a certain amount of time. And there's some of these things, whether they're here or from out there or whatever, they're going to show up to help us. And they always do. They always show up to help us, you know, humanity, right? Say, hey, we're going to help.
So they told me that it. Here, finish your thought.
No. Go ahead. I want to hear it.
Well, so they told me I'm of the builder race. That's what they told me. I don't know that I am. I'm just telling you what they told me. So they are of the builder race. They used those specific words.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, they called me a pacifier at the time. And they were saying that when I'm activated, there's millions of me's, there's millions of people like me that will like our energy center becomes like a beacon, and we like calm the population around us, and then they are allowed to kind of see us, and they'll be able to take us off planet for 4 years. They were very specific about that because the atmosphere won't be able to be breathable within those 4 years. Okay. And then when the waters recede and when it's okay, they drop us back off. And I was just like, okay, some people are not going to be cool with hanging out on shit. Like they can almost put us in a stasis state.
We're just sleeping on a ship.
You're sleeping on a ship for 4 years. And yeah, I don't know. They could be crazy. I'm just telling you what they told me. I don't know. Or what they showed me, more or less, I would say. This is like totally, but I remember thinking like, okay, that's interesting. But then I don't like the concept of, okay, you just like wait around, chill, wait for something to save you. I don't like that concept.
Yeah. Right. No, yeah, I get that too. That's really interesting to me. I've been thinking along this lines that they're trying to tell everybody that this shit's going to happen, because if things start showing up in the sky, and if they're, you know, we'll just go with what they told you, and they're here to pick you up, and all of a sudden you and I are hanging out, and there you go, right? And then, you know, 14 other people, and I'm like, well, why am I still sitting here? What the hell's going on? You know, maybe they're trying to either raise the vibration, which I don't think they are, because of everything that's going on the planet. It seems like it's the opposite.
I was gonna say it seems like it's being lowered, but
yeah, the wage drop. But you know, like either they're trying to do that, or they're trying to prepare us for, hey, this is going to happen. You know, and it's you know, don't worry about it. It's going to happen. We kind of know what's going on. We've had it figured out, you know. What
kind of bothers me about this, or actually this is where I'm starting to think about now, is that like, I really actually do think there is inner earth. Like I at first of all, I thought it was just like a cool concept. I was like, whatever. I actually went and visited a portal in Colombia back in March of 2020. And I don't know, man. I saw a unicorn, so I'm saying something was real. Something was going on there. Like, I don't know what exactly.
I saw one of your videos where you like, I don't know if this is it or not. It was really arid looking. It was a desert kind of looking, where you said something was there for a second and then it wasn't. It looked like a city.
Oh, that was about Chaco Canyon.
Okay.
Yeah. Which also, I think that is I mean, those people, that's another whole topic that we could discuss as well. But anyway, the one I went to in Colombia was this shaman guy had been there a couple of times, because he took this monk from Tibet there, who begged him to go there. They went to this place. It's called Manoa. No one knows of it. It's like in the middle of the Amazon jungle. It's super secluded. We had to go on donkeys our like mules on like through rivers like that went up to our waist. I mean, it was like not easy to get there. There was no hotel, like we were sleeping outside in tents. There was no toilet, like we were, you know, there was holes in the ground. It was
Yeah.
crazy. It was like super, super remote. Anyway, so the story is that the shaman guy, when he was younger in his 30s, he took this like this monk guy there because the guy was being invited to come. Goes there, the guy disappears and they can't find him. The shaman feels like super responsible because he was part of his group, you know. So he goes back the next day, follows the guy's footprints, walks behind this tree. There's the doorway and it's got these mechanical like metal looking guard things, and then this woman who's like a 12 or a 10 foot, I don't know, 10-12 foot giant with blue skin walks out, introduces herself as Consuela. It's actually a cool book. It's only in Spanish, but anyway, so she invites him in. He stays for 4 hours, but it was really like 21 days he was gone. Like his son and all the other people back at the camp thought he was gone missing too. They were freaking out. It was, you know, it's a big deal. But anyway, he's in there and she's explaining to him that they were part of the Atlantis civilization, and that during the last deluge, this is one of the breakaway cities she said there's some all over the world, not that many, but you know, there's some all over the world that still survived. And then but she said to him, or his story is that it was a fight, or a nuclear war between Lemurians and Atlanteans, and that's what destroyed the Earth. But there are breakaway civilizations that live under the ground and have like these portals that you can go in and out of, and they still exist. But she told him that we're the fifth age of man, and that there's two more to come, and that our time's almost done, and that the sixth race is being prepared, and they'll be half the size of us. They'll be like 3 feet tall. I don't know. It's a crazy.
So were we bigger than before then? Were we?
Oh yeah, she said Lumerians, and so she said the first two races were etheric. They were like they were the
dust.
dragons, and yeah, like kind of like ghosts, mystic, mist stuff. But she says that's where the legend of all of your fairies and your dragons and all that stuff comes from. And more, they were like Lord of the Rings, but more magical and mystical. Then she said the third race was the Lumerians, and then the fourth race was the Atlanteans, and then human Homo sapiens sapiens is the fifth race. And yeah, but I'm like, well, who's building these races? Like who's, you know, like, well, that's a whole other question, but she didn't answer for him.
Amun Ra, right?
Amun Ra, yeah, right.
Yeah, Amun Ra. I mean, I don't know. I mean, like the Atlantean theory holds true. I think. I mean, if you think about it in the terms of the micronova pole shift, you know, which quick. I mean, if you do that, pieces of land that aren't submerged will be, you know, pushed up to the surface, and vice versa, right? So there's all these different things. So if you're just hanging out on a piece of rock that you've hanged out, you know, and if it is Atlantis, I mean, it could be New York, you're underwater real quick, right? Or vice versa. Then there's a, you know, body of mass of land that's in the middle of this ocean that's never been there before. And, you know, I mean, to me, it makes sense. And then like, you know, the people survive, if they float, yeah, they're going to float. Right. So I've read a different lot of things that if I'm getting this right, if it's in the Atlantic, if it was in the Atlantic, then the coast of Northern Africa and all the way up, Spain and Ireland and all those things have people that are descendants from Atlantis. And one of the things that they say that those people have is the negative blood type, which they still can't explain. So if you look at the coast, I mean, if you literally look at the coast of everything outside of the Atlantic, just the very coast from, you know, Ireland, Scotland, and all the way down to the tip of North Africa and all the way back up, there's blonde haired, blue eyed people, basically. You know, maybe there's a mixture of that, but the majority of them have a negative blood type. And that's unfathomable when you think about it in terms of that. Like, so if a bunch of people were on an island that sunk and they were all, you know, rhesus negative, and they floated to the nearest piece of land and they stayed there, and then they had, you know, families and civilizations, that would make sense, right?
Yeah. And, you know, that was supposedly 12,000 years ago. So, or well, younger, 11,900 years ago. I mean, like that's a That's a long time for like verbal memory, not a lot of written
Right.
records, like a lot. I mean, yeah. So I mean, I don't know. I'm convinced that there was a lost civilization for sure.
Yeah. Or
Yeah,
multiples. Definitely. Definitely.
multiple ones, yeah, for sure. So maybe for me, I'm starting to think, especially when you think of all the UFOs that come in and out of the water of the ocean, I'm
Yeah.
starting to think like maybe they didn't all completely die. Maybe they are breakaway underneath the ground. Maybe they have bases underneath the ocean. Maybe they I don't. That's the other concept is like if you were going to build a home, you would live inside the home, not on top of the home. And if you think of Earth as the home, like it would be with asteroid, solar flares, like whatever. I mean, like the Carrington event happened in the 1800s. Like if that happened
Hmm.
today, our satellites would be fucked. So
Yeah.
I mean, it's just one of those things where you think we act like this is this super stable planet that's always the same temperature, has the same seasons, like has the same land masses. Like, no, that's
Mm,
not the case. We should be living inside of our home instead of on top of our home for, safety
safety.
reasons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was it? What's the name of the big thing that's in Texas? Oh, I can't remember the name of the wall. That's, oh, it's like a big deal, but everybody's trying to say it wasn't
A
man
rock
made, but
wall.
yeah, which is like, explain that. It's like a giant wall that was like basically handmade by laying brick, stone and mortar in between.
Mhm.
And it's, I don't know how old it is, but it's ridiculously old.
Yeah.
And
And I mean, I
it
just found out about that, and that's like in my Metroplex, so I could totally go see it. And it's I tried to contact everybody who was associated with it. It's like crickets, and then also it's also a thing where the city doesn't want them to build to dig it up because there's a city on top of it now.
hmm
And I'm like,
hmm
that could change the American history. Like that's beyond Native Americans. Like that's like something crazy. And
yeah, real way crazy, right? Yeah.
yeah, so
Yeah,
yeah.
there's so much history and stuff built around this we don't even know. I think we're waking up. I think that's part of this whole thing. I think we're starting to wake up. I think people are starting to figure it out. I think people are like me and you were, not afraid to talk about it. I mean, I think we're the pioneers. I mean, well, there's pioneers before us in the 40s,
Yeah.
50s, 60s, and and up now, but we're kind of laying the foundation for the next generation to be not so afraid of. But I really don't think they are. I think people don't really give a shit. Like your friend who was just texting when things are going on, or people don't want to know, or people know and they just like, there's that whole gamut of everybody where like, the people like, so this portal thing, tell me about this portal thing. You went to this thing on the donkey. I'm sorry we didn't get there, but you went to this donkey, you got there, so you went to the portal, what, and you saw a fucking
So
unicorn? What
yeah,
happened?
like the day before we were supposed to do our trek in to see the portal, like it was there was no psychedelics involved. This was just so like I ate quinoa and some river water, okay? That's it. Maybe it was river water. Me and these other two dudes were walking back to our camp, which was a little bit far away from the farmhouse that we were eating at. And it's yeah, it's like it's dark, but it's maybe there's moonlight or something. It's enough to where I can see stuff. Anyway, I'm like in the back of the line, and I feel like a push on my thing, and it's like, and I look over, and there's a horse with a horn. And it wasn't like, like unicorn pictures are always like these spirally horns. It was just like a solid, like a kind of like how cow horns are just like one piece. It was like a
Yeah.
solid straight horn coming out of like where its third eye would be. And it was a milk white horse. And I'm, you know, the other two boys, they stopped, like the three of us are stopping, like looking at it. And I'm going like, I don't really know what to say. I'm just looking at a unicorn, right? And so one of them goes, that horse has a horn. And I was like, yeah. And the other one goes, okay, I'm just gonna say it, guys, it's a unicorn. I think we're looking at a unicorn. And I was like, it is a horse with a horn. So
And it was friendly. I mean, it bumped
yeah,
you
it
like,
was
hey,
friendly.
how's it going?
And
All
then the other
right.
guy
Yeah.
was like, why did it touch you? And I was like, I don't know. And so we watched it for like 10 minutes, like just eating grass and slowly walking off until it was just like, okay, well, I guess let's go back to our camp. And then
Wow.
that same evening, I saw these weird little blue lights in the distance, and I thought it was somebody coming up with a headlamp, but nobody ever came up. And I thought, that's weird. And in the morning, one of the guys said that a fairy, he said it was about a foot tall, like this a blue fairy that was lit up, came into his tent. he said it had rat eyes, like its eyes looked like a rat.
Whoa.
And it was he's like, it was like a female figure, and it was like a idealized female like figure with wings, flew into there, looked at him, but it had like a rat face kind of thing. And then it flew out, and he was older. He was a photographer. He actually just did a documentary about our whole trip. I need to check it out. I haven't looked at it yet. Um, anyway, he was like, guys, I have to tell you something. This thing
This
came
thing
into my
happened.
tent. Like he was not into. This was like a guy who just wanted to come to try ayahuasca for the first time. Like he wasn't into he didn't know anything about like this portal thing. Like I knew about the portal, which is why I went.
Right.
Anyway, long story short, the guy who was one of the guys who was organizing the trip was he was super low vibe. I don't know how else to say it. Like he was psychologically kind of messed up, and I knew they weren't going to let us in because of him. I was like, we're not going to get in because this dude's like, you know, I don't know how to explain it. Like he named himself Dragon Love, and I don't even know what his real name was. And he walked around without a shirt on all the time. And like, he's talked, like he was like psychologically not all there. Like he was talking to things that weren't there all the time, or maybe they
Wow.
were for him. I don't really know, but he was super, like, I felt like the hair on my arms would stand up when I would be
Yeah.
around him. I was like, ugh, I don't know. And, anyway, so we were on our way up to the portal, and one of the guys that I saw the unicorn with fainted, and he like had heat stroke, and so we had to go back, and so I never got to go to the actual portal.
Wow. So you think if you would have got there, you would have been in? Is it like
I already had the feeling that I wasn't going to go because of him, but I actually knew it won't be my last time there. Like, and I think I probably I've had some talking with these crazy things in my dreams. Like I know I'll go back one day.
wow, that's rad. That's cool. I think they're everywhere. I really do.
I mean, people talk about what is that one? Mount Shasta.
Yeah, it's a big one. Those guys do CE5 up there all the time, right? There's a guy, I can't remember what that is, but they have like a constant thing where they're always doing CE5 up by Mount
Yeah.
Shasta, and there's something coming in and out. I mean, with like mountains and volcanoes and like all those natural earth things. But
I mean, like you would have told me this 3 years ago, I would have been like, dude, you are on some crazy crack. Like, I don't know what you're into, but like, yeah, go sell that someplace else.
yeah.
You know, now I'm just kind of going like, well, I don't know, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, anything's possible, but the same thing is like we were talking earlier. I mean, if you really want to believe it, if you want to see a cop on a dirt bike, you're going to see one. You know, if you want us to have a portal pop up, it's going to pop up. I mean, it's the same kind of thing. I mean, you could probably do that in your backyard. You can make the portal happen in your backyard if you believe in it and you have, you know, enough whatever behind it. I really do. I think you can do that. And I think if there's more people that believe the same thing or feel the same way, it just amplifies it. It's just going, you know, it's raising the vibration up to be. I don't know.
So how did you
Maybe I'm crazy.
No, I think you're spot on. I do. So how did you get into the whole first of all, what's a Rosicrucian?
A Rosicrucian? Oh wow.
Yeah.
Well, it's been it's been different throughout history, I guess.
Wasn't he like a Russian prophet that was friends with the Tsar?
I think you're thinking of Rasputin.
Oh, okay. I think that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, Rasputin. Yeah, he was a little fucking crazy. Now, Rosicrucianism is just Jeffrey Mishlove just had a lady on who did a really good overview, a historical overview of it. But I am a member of the SRICF, which is the Masonic order of Rosicrucianism, and so you have to be a Freemason.
Okay, so they're linked. You have, yeah.
Yeah, there's other Rosicrucian bodies that are just by themselves, that are just, you know, anybody can join. You can be anybody and just, you know, show up and join. And I am a member of the SRICF, which is the Masonic version of Rosicrucianism, where it's Christian based, and I think it started late 1800s, possibly before then. But it's basically the esoteric side of Masonry, and basically the Hermetic principles, of the ancient mysteries and things like that, right?
Mm.
And it's basically it's a college, right? We call it a college. There's colleges in each state. There's colleges in each continent. I think there's. I could be wrong on this. I think there's only about 2,400 of us on the planet, something like that, give or take. I didn't know it was real until I was asked to join, believe it or not. And I was like, it's real? And yeah, so it is real. It's been an amazing experience. Actually, this past Saturday, I became a 7th degree Rosicrucian, which is
Is it the 30, there's 33 degrees of each of these things?
no, the 33rd degree is that's Scottish Rite Masonry, which is so there's 3 degrees in Masonry. So you get 3 degrees, you get Master Mason, and what everybody says is that there is no degree higher than a Master Mason. So throughout that time, the Master Mason was the highest degree. That's the 3rd degree. But throughout the years, there's different branches. There's the York Rite of Masonry, and there's the Scottish Rite of Masonry. The York Rite is Christian, which goes through a bunch of degrees and goes up. And that to the pinnacle of that is the Knights Templar. So if you're the Knights Templar, on the Holy Grail, things like that. The Scottish Rite was a little bit after that, and it's that goes all the way up to 33 degrees, and that's a different branch of Masonry that goes up to the higher. I'm also a Shriner. I think, the Shriners with the funny hats, the guys who drive little cars, things like that, right? Have all the hospitals that there's 13 hospitals in the U.S. and I think
those the Scottish Rite hospitals, or are they?
Well, actually, to be there, and I think they just changed this law a couple of years ago, but law or edict or whatever. But I think you had to be a Scottish Rite Mason to become a Shriner. I don't think that's the case now. I could be wrong. I might be wrong on that, but so you have to be a Scottish Rite Mason and become a Shriner. The deal with the Shriners is the guys were Scottish Rite Masons and they were having fun. And in Masonry, obviously you can't tell secrets, right? And so you can't drink and lodge, right? So you don't want to get drunk and just start telling secrets. You want to go to the bar and just get hammered and start, hey, everybody, guess what's going on? Right. But there was a bunch of guys that were Freemasons that were friends and were like, hey, we like to have fun. Let's hang out. So they were just hanging out and they kind of like just hanging out outside a lodge and having fun. And there was a bunch of guys doing it after a while. And they're like, well, let's do something to help somebody. So what they did is they're like, well, what are we going to do? Let's help kids. So they started donating money. They started going, well, what are we going to do? Let's build hospitals. So they started building hospitals. A lot of guys that would die that didn't have families, a lot of people or kids or whatever, just donate their estates, donate everything they had to the shrine. And the shrine was basically, like I said, there's just guys that like to drink, have fun, do fun things, but they're Masons, so they had all the same values, but they wanted to help. So they started building hospitals all over the U.S. And like I said, there's 2 in Canada and I think 2 in Mexico now. But anytime a kid is born, from the time the baby's born until he's 18, you walk into any Shriners hospital and everything's paid for. You have to pay for anything at all. And they're the best burn units, best bone doctors and experimental research on the planet. So that's going on. And it just grew out of a bunch of guys who were having fun and wanted to help kids. So they've done some amazing science throughout the years, and it's great because of all the donations that are going on, and there's an endowment that happens, so it pays for everything all these years, and that's just really, really cool. So when I got into it, I was like, this is amazing, this is awesome. We're helping these kids out, kids that would never have a chance before to be able to walk, can walk now, and so it's awesome to be able to just contribute a little tiny bit of my life to that, to help kids out like that, So there's a huge, huge thing with Freemasonry and betterment of man, and betterment of the planet, society as a whole, everything. So when you get to these higher degrees, like I said, I didn't even think it was the 33rd degree is something that they bestow upon you. You can't even talk about it. You can't say, I want to be a 33rd, because then you'll never be one. It's one of those things where like, hey, you've dedicated your life, you've done all these cool things for Masonry, we're going to bestow this on you. And that's like a great honor. And this Rosicrucian thing, like I said, I didn't believe it was real until they asked me, and I was like, this is awesome. So we do a lot of research as a college, we write papers, we do lectures, we do, we study, we have all these things, esoteric tech, any of these things, but has to do with Hermeticism, astrology, astronomy, like, the several liberal arts and sciences, that you can think of.
So it is like you're becoming it's like an alchemist, like a mystery school.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, my gender prevents me, right? Like girls aren't allowed in it, right?
Yeah, it's such a tough, yeah. Well, it's a touchy subject, right? It is. But there are, You know, the Grand Lodge of England has a couple decrees where there are some Masonic lodges that are female.
Mm.
In America, there's a thing called the Eastern Star, which is the female version of the Masonic Order, where it follows the same kind of line, right? There's things called Job's Daughters, which is the daughters of Freemasons, and De Molay, which is the sons of Freemasons, and you know, there's things like that. But yeah, you're right, and it is kind of shitty.
Yeah, well,
Because one of the requirements are you have to believe in a higher power, right? That's one thing, right? So you can't be an atheist. You have to believe something's out there. You have to be a man, freeborn, of good rapport, and well recommended. It's kind of one of those things. So yeah, that. And I'm
yeah,
sorry, I
that
don't know why.
disqualifies me.
I'm sorry, I don't know. I don't know why, but I do. I mean, through all of my research and everything, I don't know. I hate to say this, and I'm not talking shit about our fraternity, and I'm not talking shit about religion, but maybe I am talking shit about religion. But I think that there was a time that there was a concerted effort by man, and I'm saying men as a gender, that said women really can control us a lot. Like they have way more control of us than we can fucking even handle. So what are we going to do to figure this out? Well, let's let them not be part of our religion, and let's let them not let know the mysteries, right? Wait a minute, they told us all the mysteries. Wait a minute, they are a religion. Oh yeah, well, uh, we can't handle it, you know. And that's my personal belief, is that we were just like, fuck, we can't handle this shit. These chicks are, they can do anything they want. We can't deal with it. And that's, like I said, that's just my personal belief from everything I've learned. It's just like women
You
have
know,
a stronger power than men do. And we're like, we can't handle it. We got to control you.
I've heard this concept of almost like within the pole shifting kind of thing. There's like feminine ages and there's masculine ages. There's feminine ages and they're masculine. Like I mean, a lot of people say Lumerian was and even well, like a lot of times they say that era was a feminine age, like
Mm-hmm.
um so I don't know, like who knows, but I mean I'm sure there's other mystery schools that you know I don't know, like I have a hard time sometimes thinking about the concept of, I go back and forth. Part of me is like, there's a part of me that doesn't believe that everybody should know everything because they're not responsible with some stuff.
I agree.
Then, like they're just like, if we all knew how to make bombs, imagine, like, that kind of thing. But at the same time, another part of me doesn't like the concept of having information closed off to other people because of, like, so like I go back and forth like on how to basically compartmentalize that within myself.
Yeah. And you can't.
Yeah.
It's, it's like you would think that the lesser or the greater would prevail, but how do you know?
Yeah.
And that's where, you go back to the UFO thing. I mean, like if there are different sects of warring factions between interdimensionals, extraterrestrials, ultra-terrestrials, whatever, and they hate each other and they're just using humans as pawns to battle their stuff out. I mean, how do we know? How do we know that we're not just big pawns in their big game that they're playing, this billion-year game, that we're just ants to them and then we're just playing it out for them? I'd like to think that at some point we've figured it out and we're going, yeah, you know what? We're not going to deal with your shit anymore. Invite us to the party or fuck off. I mean,
I don't know, but I mean, like, we don't have to put this part in, and I don't know how you feel about this, but like, even if you watch like COVID stuff, I mean, we are such sheep. We are controlled to a level that I mean, I'm in Texas. There's no more
mask mandates
and or like occupancy things.
Mm-hmm.
I just got back from West Texas to do like a geology dig. I was digging for geodes.
Mm-hmm.
There was 20 of us. We're in the field in a national park, like hundreds of feet away from us, like outside looking for rocks, and 6 out of the 20 are looking for rocks outdoors in the fucking heat of the day, like 90 degrees with their mask on. It's almost like the whole slavery thing about how, like they talk about how at one point they would put collars on slaves, and then whenever they would take them off, like they would feel naked.
Mhm.
It's like a programming, like we really are, to a large extent, like cattle or
Sheep.
sheep. We are just such followers without any, questions asked.
Mhm.
It's just amazing to me. It makes me kind of like sad for humans in general, because have you ever read that alien, or what is it, Interview with an Alien?
Um, is it based on
Based
what's
on
the guy's
like
name?
the theory is that, I mean, it's probably, I would say, like 95% bullshit,
Hmm.
but it's based on the the claim is that what do we call it? Some people say it's got a lot of Ron Hubbard stuff in it, so it's kind of like
Oh,
Scientology stuff.
Scientology. Oh shit.
But that, yeah. So, they're different. But I mean, a lot of people say there's some similarities, which is one of the things that got. But it apparently is about the crash of Roswell, and it was
Mm-hmm.
like the alien that they talked to, and she or he or whatever is like this little android that telepathically talked to this nurse, and it's the notes that the nurse read
Oh,
before she
right. I
died. Yeah.
did read that. Yeah, I have read that, and I can't remember what it's called, but yeah.
Anyway, the basic concept that I kind of sometimes stuck with me, the thing that I didn't think was complete bullshit that kind of stuck with me, was that this is like a prisoner planet for souls or something, like we're
Mm-hmm.
stuck here. And I don't know if I believe that exactly, but I do kind of wonder if like the fact that we forget everything, like this is just you know um like this is some sort of, I don't, and I feel this within myself, that I don't think it's always normal to forget everything. I don't know that that's I don't feel like that feels like that's existence everywhere for always.
No, and I've gone with this too, and I've thought this, and I've said this. I think the last time I talked to Patricia, believe it or not, our second interview, but like I didn't want to have kids, and my daughter's 3 now, right? And I had this feeling that it was like there's something tying me to the planet, and I think it's DNA. I think that like my whatever ancestor that was here from the beginning of time, I have that person inside of me, and it's true. It's DNA, right?
Mhm.
That's existent on the planet. That I feel like if I procreated, then my DNA stays here again. So part of me stays on this planet. But in my mind, before when I didn't want to have kids, I was like, if I don't procreate, then I get to go back. Fuck this. I don't have to stay here anymore.
That's weird. I have that same sort of internal dialogue with myself. I'm 38 and I'm single and I don't have kids. And like part of
I
me
was
is
40 when I had my, or close to, I was 39. Yeah, 39 when I had Stella, and I was like, fuck, I'm too old. This isn't gonna work. But it happened.
yeah, part of me thinks like I still haven't completely made my mind up one way or the other about it, because like part of me is like kind of like maybe I should have ones just as a human rite of passage, but then another part of myself kind of goes like, then you have to stay, like it's like karma. You're creating karma.
Wow, that's crazy that you said that too. And Patricia told me, we were talking about this. She was like, because she's like, a lot of people think that but they stay too because you're invested in that. Like, so you want to see your kids or your grandkids, and you want to make sure that they're okay, and you're invested in this thing that we call life, right? This whatever this is, and we have such a tie to it that we want to stay. Maybe it's not the genetic thing, but maybe it's just like, oh, we care enough, like, oh, we don't want to go, you know. But that was really one of my big deals. I was like, man, fuck, I want to go back. Like, but the other part of this is too, and I've talked about this, is like, I think that's maybe the greatest treasure that we have, is that we forget. I think it's kind of like an amusement park where we're just like, we go back up and we're like, fuck yeah, that was rad. Let's go back. Because whatever we're dealing with at the time, if you think about it in just the generalist of terms, it's like we're hanging out, we go back up there like, wow, look at all that cool shit. Like, you can't experience the things that we're doing, like the conversations we're having, like the booze I'm drinking, like, like the things that we're doing, like that doesn't exist wherever that is. So we're like, cool. And the greatest gift is that we forget so that we experience the whole thing
Yeah.
again. Like it's just, we're just babies, to whatever we do. And then we get back and then maybe we do have a choice, but maybe the DNA
Maybe
does
the
hide us,
memories all back at some point. I don't know, but for me, I feel like it's that whole concept of like if you're at the DMV and you're waiting for like 2 hours to get your driver's license and you're like, oh my God, this is the worst thing ever. Like, come on, let's move. But at the same time, do I have real memory of waiting at the DMV? Not really. Like that's not something that's prominent in my memory complex. It's like, whatever. But yet I would have had the good, I kind of feel like the more memorable like events or things that you've done, you can kind of have more play by plays, like the more important moments versus like the waiting in traffic or something. So it is weird how we compartmentalize memory, and pain like doesn't last. The memory of pain isn't as prominent as the memory of joy, like when you really
Yeah.
start looking at you think. But I also always take comfort in not, I see memory as like this like sliding scale to where it's like, yeah, I don't remember what happened, what it was before I was born, but I also don't remember my first 3 years of life, and then I barely remember it. It feels like the older you get, the less you remember before then. So like I feel like you have this, your desktop can only fit so much files before it has to
Right.
go into your hard drive, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're as you move along with time, you're more connected to what has most closely happened to you as you go through. And that in a way is brings some comfort to me, because I think like, okay, well, maybe that's just how it works, like universally. Like
Hmm.
you're in the present and you're in the now, and you're whatever is closest to the now is what is in the on the desktop. But maybe, you know once we started this new program, which is this incarnation, everything else is in the hard drive, but we can access that at some point and figure out
Yeah.
how to access that.
Yeah, that's totally it. I think there's ways to do it. I think that's what the collective unconscious or collective consciousness is. I think it's always there. I think it's there for us to pop into or pick up from. And I was having this conversation today with my wife. We were walking, and it was Edison and Tesla and a bunch of other people had this thing where have you heard about this? Where they held a steel ball, a big steel ball in their hand, and below them, like they would take naps all the time during the day, and below them they would be working on a problem they couldn't solve. They're like, I can't figure this out, right? Whatever there is, and they'd be thinking about and thinking about, and they'd want to find the answer to this. So they would take a nap, but they would hold this heavy steel ball in their hand, and they would have like a steel bowl underneath them, and they would drift off and they'd fall asleep. And it just as they fall asleep, your hand relaxes and opens up, and this ball falls out, and it falls into this bowl, and it goes bam, and it wakes them up, right? But in that amount of time between that happening, they access that akashic record, the whatever it is, right? And then the answer comes to them. And like the majority of their inventions, the majority of their answers, like all of these things have come to them in
Oh,
these
that's
states.
interesting, because I remember Tesla, it only slept like 20-minute intervals or did some weird stuff like that. So okay.
Yeah. So Edison, there's a statue of Edison holding balls in his hand somewhere. I can't remember where, but like it's a thing. And Brian Romley is a guy on Twitter too that he's awesome, and he's got a thing where he talks all about it. And there's I think, I don't know if it's MIT or Stanford, they've created a glove where it's like a glove that you can put on. It has electrodes on it, and it does the same thing without holding a ball. Like it knows when you get to that state where your hand relaxes, and it like kind of wakes you back up. And it's fucking nuts. But a lot of people are using that because it's proven that works.
Yeah.
Whatever that, yeah, it comes to you, and you can connect to it. And there's all these little things that we
Well,
just don't know about.
I'm a natural lucid dreamer, and I always have been. And I think the main reason, like I've told some of my friends, is like, well, I drink a shit ton of water before I go to bed, and it's a bad habit, but I have to pee at least like 2 or 3 times in the middle of the
So
night. So
you're
I
up.
wake my
Yeah.
body up and I have to go pee. And I think it's like maybe I always like wake myself up during REM, or I don't really know, but it makes it to where, okay, maybe I'm not a lucid dreamer every night, but at least 4 nights out of 7, I lucid dream, and have since I was a baby. I don't remember not being
Wow.
like that. And so and what the only reason I could figure out later is that I have that, like, like I have a fear of being thirsty in the middle of the night. I have a fear of like getting a
I'm
dry
so
mouth or
thirsty.
something.
Yeah,
So I'm
yeah.
like I like drink like a ton of water right before I go to bed every night. And if I don't do it, I don't feel right. Like I feel like oh my throat. Like I'm
I
like no
can't
no
sleep then,
can't do
right?
it
Yeah,
can't do it.
yeah.
I have to drink all like a ton of water. So anyway, I think that I break up my sleep cycle. So
That's it. What are you holding? You holding two balls right now
oh
too?
yeah, this one's from Bosnia, like the Bosnia pyramids. Like this is a friend brought this back for me. This is like one of those balls, the spheres they have there. And then this is a lapis one. And I always hold this one because I'm like, that's supposed to be for your throat chakra. So I always
Oh,
have these by my um like my computer whenever I'm doing podcasts because it's lapis is supposed to be for communication. I don't know, whatever.
but
But
that one's actually like a ball that they found at a site,
yeah,
or
it's apparently a ball that was found in the pyramidal. Apparently there's a lot of these that are it's just it's a perfect stone sphere. It's little.
wow.
Um I don't know. And like my friend was like, I don't want to give this to you, but I keep on getting told I need to give this to you. And she's like, cause like this
Awesome.
is cool. I went there and and I wanted to go there. I was actually supposed to go to do the Bosnia pyramid thing in 2020. And of course,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I think there's so much shit in your backyard that you would be amazed at too.
Yeah, and
With it.
that's something I'm starting to get, more into. Like there's like I said, the rock wall thing is in Texas and I next month I joined this gym and mineral club thing and just within the last 6 weeks there's been another big bed of dinosaur feet and human
Oh,
feet found in Glen Rose that are like on the same like they're
wow.
crossing over each other and like that has been found in Glen Rose before but just this paleo group that I belong to they're like this is like historic like you guys got to come down and check it out
Wow.
photograph it because it's it'll hit the news sometime this summer and it's going to be crazy.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
the giant thing always gets me too. There's so many giants that are the bones are just chucked into
Yeah.
the ocean or burned or whatever. It's like, man, they're still there. So,
Yeah, the Giants have been on a huge rabbit hole with that, and I mean, and
there's just too much proof to say that it's just bullshit.
yeah, and it's also weird that when they find skeletons, like the Smithsonian takes them, and it's like deuces.
Yep. See, what are you talking about? We didn't pick that shit up. What giant skeletons?
Yeah, yeah.
No.
I don't know
No.
what, and that makes me kind of go, well, why is it in? Okay, do you actually think disclosure is going to come?
No.
I don't either.
No. It's not. There's. I mean, and even if it did, like you and I were talking about, 75% of people are like, yeah, it's not real. I've had this conversation like every single video I think I've ever done. Is that I got a buddy of mine that I love him to death. He's awesome, but he's one of the dudes where, like, if a disc landed in his fucking backyard and the thing got out and was 7 feet tall and came and walked up to him and was like, Mike, we're from wherever, whatever. Hey, Mike, look, cool, nice to meet you. And the thing got up and flew away. He would be like, nah, dude, that didn't happen.
Yeah,
Like he would just like literally, if he saw the whole thing go down, he'd be like, nah, that wasn't real. Like it's just, like there's so many people that are like that. Like, no, that didn't happen. It's programming or the sheep thing or whatever, we're talking about before, where people just believe whatever they want to believe. And I mean, I think there's so much of that. I think that they're really afraid of giving us all the information is because of the religious aspect of it. There's so many people that would still flip out and decide that their religion didn't matter anymore and shoot themselves and all kinds of stuff. I really do.
yeah. I mean, I think it's kind of maybe more cynical than that, meaning like maybe I think it's hidden because I think a lot of it's hidden because it's like ETs, whatever they are, whether they're interdimensional time travelers, outer space beings, whatever they are, they I think are already infiltrated. I mean,
Oh
obviously
yeah,
you see them all over the place. They're here already. So
yeah.
I feel like it's whatever warring factor or elements of them. I feel like they're disclosed intentionally on purpose.
Yeah, I mean, it would not behoove them to come out and tell everybody they're
Right.
there for whatever they're doing, right? Totally. And then, yeah, I think there's a lot of us that probably got their thumb on a lot of the shit that's going on too. I mean, because think about it, it's like, why isn't there any good, clear pictures of UFOs? Like, because they don't fucking want you to.
Yeah.
And they can make that happen if they can show up as an elf or a fairy or a 7 foot tall gray. They're not going to let you take a damn picture for
No.
God's sakes. Like that's going to happen. Like there ain't no fucking way.
And it's like when I, like, for instance, the unicorn story, when I tell everybody,
Yeah.
you didn't take a picture of that, it's like, no, I didn't have my phone on me because there's no cell phone service anyway. It was dark and I was like getting some quinoa. It was like, I mean, yeah, we live in the 21st century. You have your phone all the time, but not when you're in the middle of
But even if you
nowhere.
took a picture, everybody would be like, yeah, you stuck a horn on a
Or
fucking,
I still
yeah.
have, like, I have like one friend who was like, hun, she's from Scotland. She's like, I believe you, but I think that what you're dealing, there's genetic anomalies. Like, I'm sure that horse just like had some sort of genetic thing. It was,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. It's a mutation, right? Yeah.
it was a genetic mutation. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, that's a good theory. Everybody has to come up with the plot. I mean, like when
There's
my wife, when my wife saw my wife was with me both times when we saw the orange orbs and we saw the white orbs with my daughter, this past summer, and everything that you could think of, it's fucking
drones.
Chinese lanterns, drones, like it's whatever, it's everything your brain can possibly go. It's not what I think I know what it is. It's something completely, plausible that I can come up with. It's this, and it's
Mhm.
just like nah. And I don't think you get, like I said, we were saying before, I don't think you really, until you have that experience, that you can kind of go, yeah, okay. So unless there's a mass sighting, like, something about the Phoenix Lights times a billion around the planet, it's not going to wake people up. I mean,
I mean, there are those schools that have seen him, or
yeah,
there's
right.
Fatima, or there's all kinds of mass sightings that have happened throughout time, and it's just, I think it's like a personal revelation or not.
Yeah, it's totally with that. And the Bledsoe story is amazing too. I don't know if Chris Bledsoe story. I mean, that's just unfolding. Easter's coming up. I think there's every time Easter happens, the lady comes and tells Chris Bledsoe some more stuff, and I don't know. I think there's a lot to that. I think there's a lot to unfold there with his story. I mean, I completely believe it, 100%.
Yeah, I would love to go out there and check it out if I ever could, but yeah.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, I think there's a lot going on there that there's more to unpack than we can even possibly imagine. But I think that's happening all over, and he said it too. There's happening, other places and other people and other families.
yeah,
So
I've listened to Chris Bledsoe talk and stuff, and for me, I mean, like, I've had so many paranormal experiences throughout my life. Like, I don't know why it's just not that impressive. It's not that I don't believe him. I believe all of that, but I'm just saying, like, I don't feel, I, I have so many people I've talked to that tell me things that they don't want me putting on here,
mhm.
that I guess because now I'm kind of like the weird girl who's like into aliens and stuff like that, so people tell, like, it's like on the down low, a lot of people like come to talk to me about stuff, and I yeah, people are getting contacted.
Yeah,
That's just how it is. Like,
yeah.
that's just what's happening, and I don't know if it's just for them or if it's for, like, I don't know, but the concept of, even though they did fly over the White House, but the concept of them landing on the White House lawn and like talking to, greet, that Independence Day thing, that's never happening. That's
Mm-mm.
not, um, we can't look for our
Mm,
government to save us from our
no.
government. Like, that's not gonna be what's gonna happen.
Yeah, no, totally. It's just going to be the individual thing, or maybe we do, like whatever the vision you had was. Maybe we do have people that rise above the vibrational state of others and that can uplift people and bring them along. And that's one of the big Masonic things is like, hey, look, you're doing this to make yourself better, and you're also tasked with making your society better, making your world better, making everything around you better. Like that's your charge, right? You got to make yourself better. Okay. And everything else around you's got to come up too.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I love about it, like we're talking about the Shriners and, the thing, just the thing for the kids. But I mean, there's so many different other programs, but yeah, but
Yeah,
you're
but
tasked with
I feel
individually.
like Freemasons also, I mean, they get associated with Illuminati,
Hmm.
which is an offshoot of them, and they get a lot of, I mean, for me, I've even had a little bit of impression like, oh, you're, oh, Freemason. Like, okay, it's like, so how did you, how do you deal with that? Because do you have to like correct people sometimes that because there's a lot of negative
Yeah.
associations with masonry,
Yeah, there is, and I think it's a lot of it just because when you put any type of
secrecy.
secrecy around anything, everybody's like, "Oh, it's bad," And Illuminati, I mean, that's just like a catch-all word that they threw in. If you check out some of the stuff we did with John Warner the Fourth, I'll send you some of those links. But yeah, he kind of brought that up too. It's just like, it's just they made that, that was the thing, Bavaria, like I don't know what years, but it wasn't a, we think about it now as like the globalist elites, the 13 ruling families and all that stuff. They don't call each other Illuminati. They don't believe in that, and everybody kind of thinks that's like a term. I think whenever you have a group of people that have secrets, you're gonna think that
They're
there's something
responsible, or they can
nefarious
use
going
his
on or something bad.
scapegoats
And
maybe.
honestly, yeah, totally. And to be completely honest, when I got into Freemasonry, I was like, I'm gonna get in here and I'm gonna tell everybody all this shit. I'm gonna go in there and just like bust it all out. I'm gonna be like, hey, this is what's going on, and they're sacrificing goats and all this stuff is going on. And I got into it, and it was the best experience of my life. I got into it, and I was like, I have always been a Mason, and thank God I'm back. That's how I felt. It was like, this is great. It was such an enlightening thing, and it made me a better man, a better human. So to me, when you get into those things, it's just ignorance, it's just stigma, it's just media, whatever programming you come up with.
Mhm.
There, none of that shit's happening. I can tell you. I mean, all the things that everybody says, all the,
Right. It's
oh,
not
you're
like
trying to take over the
eyes
world.
wide shut kind of thing, or like
Never, nowhere even close, not even a quarter of a percent, right? There's not anything there. Like the rituals we go through, yes, they're secret. The things that we do, yes, but but other than that, I mean, it's basically trying to make ourselves better and make the community better and make the world better. And I think that's really what we've been doing since, like, we call it time immemorial, since before recorded history, like before the Bible. Masons have been there, right? And I think we've been there to build. We're builders, right? I don't know if that's the builder race. That's kind of crazy. I just thought about that when you're talking about, but we've been there to help Masons for the historically you had to have a pass to get to a different country. Like I couldn't just walk from here to France if I wanted to. Somebody had to say, no, you have to come here. You're allowed to come here, whatever. Masons were the first society community to be able to travel freely all over the world, because we'd show up and we'd build cathedrals, we'd build
you were
the
the
structures of
stonemasons.
renown. Yes, exactly. So we started as the stonemasons, then we held the secrets of how we built those things secrets within our society, because if I just told everybody, then there'd be 500 people out there building cathedrals, right? So we kept that in, and we also had the esoteric side of it as well, right? So there was both of those things. So you're free to move about the world at will. You were needed because of the secret you held for the building, and inside of that was all the other things that came along with it. So it's really cool to look at that, how that evolved from history, to see where we're at today. And to be honest, there's not a lot of us anymore. I mean, masonry is really dying. There's a lot of people that
Do you
they're
think that's just because just kind of how religion's dying, or do you think, or me, or is it like you can't find people to recruit, or people don't stay, or what?
Well, I mean, there's no recruiting. I mean, that's the thing. Everybody thinks how recruiting. If you want to be a Freemason, you have to ask a Freemason. That's how it is. If somebody wants to be a Freemason, they have to ask one. To be one, ask one is one of the catchphrases or whatever. But honestly, I mean, that's what it is. I mean, we can't go out like, hey, we think you should be a good Freemason, because that's just not how it works. We're not the Jehovah's Witness. We're not like
Right.
beating on the doors going, you need to be a Freemason. No, it's like, you can come to us, and then there's a vetting process and all that stuff, and we let people in. But it's just like before, in previous generations, it was more patriarchal, I guess would say. It was like my great grandfather was a Mason, his father was a Mason, now I'm gonna be.
Right. Yep.
And there was a certain part of time, that I would say there was like, fuck that, I'm not gonna do what my dad did. I don't want to be a part of that shit, just to not do it, because to be whatever. But I think there's a little bit of a renaissance coming on, to people like coming back to it or whatever. I'm like, nobody in my family was a Mason that I'm aware of at all on either side forever. So it's interesting that I became one. But I think there's a lot of people that are just kind of going, like you and I, that are just kind of waking up to things, going, well, what else is out there? What else can I do? What else can I? Where's my part in all of this? And I think that masonry does kind of fill that in a lot of people. But no, I think there's needs to be more of us, to be honest. But we're not out there like running the world, or starting the new world order, controlling that shit. I guarantee you that's not happening.
No, but I mean, like I have this like just this notion that like magic was here left and I feel like it's coming back. Like and magic, I mean, whether that's telepathy or like I don't know what in what form, but I yeah, there's more to we are being repressed in a big way and I feel
Hmm.
like a lot of us are kind of like going nope nope something more something else is going on and
Hmm.
I don't know I feel that really viscerally so like yeah, I think that's cool and like that's good that you're being a really good spokesman for the Masons. The other good spokesman for the Masons is Randall Carlson. Have you ever looked into him?
I've heard the name a couple of times. I think
He's a
somebody hit me up
big
to him.
young Adrias guy. He's a geologist who's good friends with Graham Hancock, and he's been on a bunch of Joe
Ah,
Rogan programs. He has his own podcast too, but he's, you know, he gets down and really interested in, he shows like all the where potential solar flashes or
hmm,
meteorites would have crashed and what it did to the soil. And like he's really, really hands-on about there was a pre-existing ancient civilization that was big and then it got destroyed and this is the physical evidence that we can show
that's
and
rad.
prove and right. And so yeah, and he's a Mason and he talks really good about it as well. So
Yeah, and Scott Wolter. I don't know if you're Scott Wolter is a Mason too from America on the Earth, and he's
oh yeah.
a big geologist. Yeah, and he's a Knights Templar. He's a Mason as well. And yeah, actually, Scott was contacted by somebody in the government recently, and who was a Mason, believe it or not, in a higher level of government, and said that is actually tapped Scott to help with disclosure, believe it or not.
Wow.
There's a couple interviews that I've listened to where Scott talks about that, and this guy who's called Holden, and that's his his made up name or whatever, right? But supposedly he's a Mason. Supposedly, vetted himself with Scott, and he's asked Scott to help with the disclosure. And like Scott has said in a couple of interviews, like 5 years ago, he asked me about aliens and all that shit, and I'd tell you like I don't think about it at all. I don't even care about it. But because of his background and all this stuff, I mean, so I think he's going down that rabbit hole right now too. So I think there's a thing with Masons too. Like we obviously have to keep secrets with each other. We keep secrets of our fraternity, but we also keep oaths to each other to keep secrets. To
Mhm.
to share things that we wouldn't, under
Yeah.
penalty of some heinous death that we wouldn't reveal, right? So I think there's that kind of thing that
It's yeah, I
is
mean,
a
because
big
in a
play.
lot of ways, I feel like your knowledge back in like Salem trial, witch trials would have made you a witch, you know, and in some
Oh
ways.
yeah.
Like if you're talking about astrology and hermetica and this kind of stuff, there was a period in time where that would have got you burned. So I
Well, see,
mean,
I'm going to bring this up. There's a couple of different countries still on Earth right now that if I was wearing this ring, they would pull me into somewhere and they potentially put me in jail and kill me
hmm,
for being a Mason. That's still a thing at different parts of on the planet right now. That you would be same deal as a Salem witch trial. You can't tell your own family that you're a Freemason because you would be put in prison or killed in a couple different countries.
so is it
So
controversial
that still happens.
that you are public with your Freemasonry? Is that controversial at all?
Nobody's told me to shut up yet.
Not
Nobody's
that I
told me,
know
John,
of.
turn it down or anything. The Rosicrucian thing. I mean, yeah, not that I know of. I mean, they haven't kicked me out, but no, I mean, the Rosicrucian thing is very, very small. I mean, and it's very, it's different, right? It's not the, that's out there all the time, and I haven't been told to shut up. I mean, obviously I will if I need to, but I
Right.
haven't shared any secrets. I haven't said anything that I wasn't supposed to. So no, I think that I'm trying to do what I think is best for humanity in my mind, and if that's not okay, but that I also I'm given the latitude to be able to do what I want. Like I said, I'm not out as a spokesperson for Freemasonry. I'm not out as a spokesperson for any of the independent bodies that I'm talking about. I'm out as just me. The things that I've happened to learn and the experiences that I've gained and the knowledge that I've, gained from being a member is amazing. And the research on top of that It's kind of like, uh, it's kind of like when it's just, you're walking through a different country and say you didn't know German, and but then all of a sudden you learn German and you saw a sign on the wall and you're like, I can read that. I understand what that means now, and like I can physically see that, and it does something to me, and I know what it means. For Freemasonry, for me, once I went through all these things, I said, wow, there's shit everywhere, and now I know what it means.
Okay,
If
that's
that makes
cool.
sense.
Yeah, so it's like learning a hidden language in a way.
Yeah, in a way, through symbology, right? So it's symbology veiled in allegory, right? Or allegory veiled in symbology. I can't remember which way it goes, but something like that. So, symbols were the first thing on
Language.
the planet to be able to, you recognize an emotion. You could look at a thing. Yeah, the first language, it was before written language. Manly P. Hall does a really good lecture on it. Who's a Freemason, but basically, it was just symbols that were representative of physical things. It was a tree, and you knew what that meant on a
Fun. Yeah.
spiritual, physical, cultural level, right? So then somehow you represented it, and then it turned into, after, I don't know, whatever iterations of it, now it's a T, and then it became written language, and a lot of the meaning and depth of all that shit was lost when we started speaking in language and written language. When you can still look at a symbol at some point. I don't know if it's a square and compass. I mean, maybe that, but, or the eye, the all-seeing eye or something, but you can see different symbols throughout history, and somehow subconsciously it resonates with you, and you can kind of go, I know what that means. Like you were talking about the bricks that you saw, the like butter melting. You're like, I know that's not normal,
Yeah.
and it did something to you.
Yeah. Well, this has been awesome.
Thank you. It's been fun.